Hello, and welcome to the Wisdom Wednesday podcast series titled Insights into Healing: The Psychology of Domestic Violence, where we dive deep into the complex and often misunderstood world of domestic violence. I'm your host, Nadia, and together we're embarking on a transformative journey this quarter with our theme, Shedding Light on Shadows, Understanding Domestic Violence. Domestic violence is a pervasive issue that touches the lives of countless individuals across the globe. It weaves through homes and relationships, leaving behind a trail of pain, confusion, and often silence. Our mission this quarter is to illuminate the dark corners of this issue, to bring understanding and awareness to a subject that has been shrouded in shadows for far too long. This week, we turn our focus to the many faces of domestic violence. It's crucial to recognize that abuse is not monolithic. It manifests in various forms, each with its own set of challenges and impacts. From the physical to the emotional, psychological, sexual, and financial, understanding the breadth and depth of domestic violence is the first step towards effective intervention and support. Join us as we explore these different aspects, shedding light on the shadows and offering hope and guidance to those affected. Together, we can foster a deeper comprehension of domestic violence, empowering ourselves and others to understand and take a stand against abuse in all its forms. Today's episode is titled Invisible Chains: Unveiling the Many Faces of Domestic Violence. So let's get into it. We're going to start with understanding the spectrum. Today, we embark on a profound journey together as we introduce our quarter's theme, Shedding Light on Shadows, Understanding Domestic Violence. In this series, we're committed to exploring the multifaceted nature of domestic violence, aiming to deepen our collective understanding and awareness of this critical issue. This week, we're focusing on unraveling the many forms of domestic violence, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and addressing each aspect to effectively support survivors and work towards prevention. Domestic violence, often perceived through the narrow lens of physical harm, actually encompasses a wide range of abusive behaviors. It's a pattern of behavior used by one person in a relationship to gain or maintain control over another person. This can manifest in several forms. One being physical abuse, the use of physical force that can result in bodily injury, physical pain, or impairment. This is often what most people think of when they hear domestic violence. Two, emotional abuse. This involves undermining an individual's sense of self worth through constant criticism, belittling one's abilities, name calling, or damaging one's relationship with their children. Emotional abuse can be just as devastating as physical violence. Three, psychological abuse. This includes causing fear by intimidation, threatening physical harm to oneself, the victim, or the victim's loved ones. destruction of pets and property, and forcing isolation from family, friends, or school and or work. 4. Sexual abuse. This encompasses any form of non-consensual sexual contact, which can range from derogatory sexual comments to rape. Like other forms of domestic violence, sexual abuse is about power and control. 5. Financial abuse. The act of controlling a person's ability to acquire, use, or maintain financial resources. Victims are often forced to rely on the abuser financially, making it difficult to break free from the abuser or the abuse. A common misconception around domestic violence is that it solely entails physical aggression. However, the reality is that abuse can be covert and manipulative, such as in cases of emotional, psychological, and financial abuse. These forms of violence can be subtler, making them harder to recognize and often leaving victims questioning their own experiences and reality. It's crucial for us to acknowledge that domestic violence is not defined by physical harm alone. By broadening our understanding and recognizing all types of abuse, we empower ourselves and others to offer more comprehensive support to survivors and take a stand against all forms of domestic violence. Now let's get into the psychology behind abuse. Today, we dive deep into a topic that, while often shrouded in complexity and sensitivity, demands our attention and understanding. The psychology behind abusive behavior and the profound impact it has on victims of domestic violence. As we navigate these intricate discussions, I want to acknowledge up front that today's episode is a solo journey. Although we won't have a guest expert joining us, the insights and information shared are grounded in in extensive research from credible sources, including academic journals, reputable websites dedicated to domestic violence prevention, and insights from leading psychologists and advocates in the field. Our aim today is not just to inform, but to foster a space where understanding can grow, where misconceptions can be dismantled, and where empathy can be flourished. The topics we're covering: why abusers abuse, the cycle of violence, and the psychological effects of long term exposure to abuse are not simple. They are layered with complexities that affect real lives in profound ways. By discussing these, we hope to shed light on the shadows that too often keep domestic violence hidden from view. So, whether you're here seeking information, support, or understanding, know that this conversation is an important step towards broader abuse awareness, broader awareness, and ultimately change. Let's embark on this journey together with open hearts and minds. Today, we delve into a topic that's both complex and deeply impactful: the psychology behind abusive behavior and the factors that contribute to it. It's a sensitive subject touching on the lives of many, and it's important to approach it with care and respect. While we both while we won't have a guest expert joining us today, I've dedicated significant time to researching credible sources, including academic journals and expert opinions, to bring you a well rounded perspective on this topic. Let's begin with the general overview of the common psychological profiles of abusers. According to research published by the American Psychological Association, abusers often share certain personality traits and behavioral patterns. These can include a desire for power and control, a lack of empathy, and an inclination towards aggression. It's crucial to understand that while not all individuals with these traits will become abusers, these characteristics are frequently observed in those who do engage in abusive behavior. Several factors several factors contribute to the development of abusive behavior. One primary factor is the desire for power and control over another person. This need often stems from deep-seated insecurities and the fear of abandonment, leading the abuser to exert control in harmful ways. Past experiences of abuse also play a significant role. Many abusers have themselves been victims of abuse or witnessed abuse in their families. This cycle of violence can perpetrate, no, this cycle of violence can perpetuate abusive behaviors. Also, individuals, one more time, this cycle of violence can perpetuate abusive behaviors as individuals normalize and internalize the violence they experienced or observed. Societal influences cannot be overlooked either. Cultural and social norms that perpetuate gender stereotypes, normalize aggression, or stigmatize seeking help for emotional issues can also contribute to abusive behavior. Societal attitudes toward masculinity and femininity, for instance, can pressure individuals into conforming to harmful behaviors to exert their dominance or control. Understanding these factors is essential in recognizing and addressing abusive behavior. It allows us to see the broader picture and the roots of the issue, guiding efforts towards prevention and support for those affected. Let's keep this conversation going as we explore more about the cycle of violence and its impact on survivors in today's episode. The cycle of violence, a concept crucial to understanding domestic abuse, is a pattern that tends to repeat itself in many abusive relationships. This cycle can be broken down into four distinct phases: tension building, incident, reconciliation, and calm. Each phase plays a specific role in the dynamics of an abusive relationship, contributing to the complexity of leaving or seeking help for many victims. 1. Tension building phase. This phase is characterized by a gradual increase in stress and tension within the relationship. The abuser may become more irritable, angry, or critical, often over minor issues. The victim, sensing this escalation, might feel like they're walking on eggshells, trying to placate or appease the abuser to prevent an outburst. Despite efforts, this tension continues to build, creating an atmosphere of fear and anxiety. 2. The incident phase. The tension building phase inevitably leads into an incident of acute abuse. This could be physical, emotional, sexual, or psychological. It's the moment where the built up tension explodes into an overt act of violence or aggression. The incident is often shocking and traumatizing, leaving the victim in fear for their safety and well being. 3. Reconciliation phase. After the incident, the abuser may express remorse or guilt, sometimes blaming their behavior on external factors or even the victim. They might offer excuses, apologize, and promise that it will never happen again. This phase often includes affectionate, loving behavior, gifts, or gestures of kindness, leading the victim to hope for change and a return to the happier early days of the relationship. 4. Calm phase, also known as the honeymoon phase. This period is marked by a return to a peaceful, loving relationship. The abuse seems to have stopped, and the abuser may fulfill their promises made during a reconciliation phase. This phase reinforces the victim's hope for a lasting change, making it harder to leave the relationship. A quote that highlights the impact of this cycle comes from Dr. Lenore Walker, who first identified the cycle of violence. The cycle of violence is like a whirlpool. Each cycle spins faster, pulling the victim vortex, deeper into its vortex. It is a pattern that not only traps the victim in a cycle of violence, but also psychologically binds them to the abuser. Visualizing the cycle of violence can help listeners understand the psychological roller coaster that victims experience, explaining why leaving an abusive relationship is not as straightforward as it might seem. The cycle creates a confusing mix of fear, love, hope, and despair, making it difficult for victims to break free without support and intervention. The psychological impact of domestic violence on survivors can extend far beyond the intimate aftermath of abuse, leading to long-term mental health challenges. These include post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and significant issues that self-esteem and trust. Significant issues with self-esteem and trust. Understanding these effects is crucial for supporting survivors on their journey towards healing. Post traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. Many survivors of domestic violence experience PTSD, a condition that can arise after exposure to severe trauma. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, and uncontrollable thoughts about the abuse. A study published in the Journal of Traumatic Stress reveals that the prevalence of PTSD in survivors of intimate partner violence is significantly higher than in the general population, underscoring the profound impact of such trauma on mental health. Anxiety. Anxiety disorders are common among survivors, manifesting a persistent manifesting as persistent worry, feelings of tension, and physical symptoms like increased heart rate. The uncertainty and fear experienced during abusive relationships can lead to a heightened state of anxiety that persists long after the relationship has ended. Research indicates that the unpredictable nature of domestic violence, particularly the cycle of tension and incident, can exacerbate feelings of anxiety and fear of future harm. Depression. Depression is another prevalent issue characterized by persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities, feelings of hopelessness, and sometimes suicidal thoughts. The isolation of emotional manipulation, often experienced in abusive relationships, can contribute to the development of depression. A study in the Archives of Women's Health, a study in the Archives of Women's Mental Health found that women who have experienced intimate partner violence are at a higher risk of developing depression compared to those who have not. Issues with self esteem and trust. Survivors who struggle with diminished self esteem and trust issues, the constant criticism, belittlement, and betrayal inherent in abusive relationships can erode a person's sense of self worth and make it difficult to trust others. This can affect future relationships and the survivor's ability to form healthy, supportive connections. Communicating these points with empathy is vital. It's important to recognize the strength and resilience of survivors while acknowledging the challenges they face. Encouragingly, studies also show that with appropriate support and intervention, survivors can rebuild their lives and find healing and fulfillment beyond the trauma of abuse. Access to therapy, support groups, and other resources can play a critical role in the recovery process, offering hope and a path forward for those affected by domestic violence. As we navigate today's discussion on the many faces of domestic violence and its profound impact on survivors, I want to invite you, our listeners, to reflect and engage with the material on a deeper level. Your insights and experiences are invaluable in this conversation, helping to broaden our collective understanding and support for survivors. Here are some reflective questions I'd like you to consider. 1. Have you ever noticed these patterns in relationships around you? Whether it's a friend, family member, colleague, or even in the past, your past relationships, recognizing the signs can be the first step towards intervention and support. 2. How do you think recognizing these signs early can change the outcome of for someone experiencing abuse? Early recognition can be crucial in providing support, preventing further harm, and possibly saving lives. What are your thoughts on the importance of awareness and education in changing outcomes for survivors? 3. In what ways can we, as a community, offer support to those who have been affected by domestic violence? Consider the role of empathy, resources, and open dialogue in creating a supportive network for survivors. 4. How can learning about the psychological effects of abuse, like PTSD and depression, influence the way we support others, survivors, in their healing journey? Understanding the long term impact can shape how we approach support and recovery services for survivors. 5. What steps can individuals take to break the cycle of violence, either in their lives or in the lives of those around them? Reflect on the actions and commitments needed at both a personal and community level to make a meaningful difference. I encourage you to share your thoughts, stories, or responses to those questions via social media or on our podcast community platform. Use the hashtag Wisdom Wednesday Podcast to join the conversation and connect with others who are passionate about making a difference in the fight against domestic violence. Your participation not only enriches our dialogue, but also strengthens the support network for survivors, reminding us all that not one has to face this journey alone. Together, we can foster a culture of awareness, intervention, and empathy, paving the way for healing and empowerment. As we wrap up this segment, I want to ensure that anyone affected by domestic violence knows where to find support and information. Remember, reaching out for help is a brave and crucial step towards healing and safety. Here are some resources that can help provide assistance and further education on the topics of domestic violence. The National Domestic Violence Hotline phone number is 1-800-799-SAFE, also 1-800-799-7233. Text START to 88788. Website www.thethehotline.org. The hotline offers 24/7 confidential support, resources, and advice for those affected by domestic violence, whether you're seeking help for yourself or for someone else. Whose information pages on violence against women. Website is www.who.int/news-room/fact-sheets with an S /detail/violence-against-women WOMEN. The World Health organization provides detailed information on the types of violence against women, including intimate partner violence, and offers resources for finding support and advocacy initiatives globally. APA's resources on domestic violence. The website is www.apa.org/topics within S /violence/domestic. The American Psychological Association offers insights into the psychological aspects of domestic violence, coping strategies, and ways to support survivors. Their website includes articles, research findings, and links to additional resources. These organizations provide invaluable support, information, and resources for individuals facing domestic violence. They also offer guidance for friends and family members who are looking to help loved ones affected by abuse. These organizations' information will also be located below the podcast on the page. Remember, you are not alone and there is support available to you. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, I encourage you to reach out to these resources. Educating ourselves and seeking help when needed is are critical steps in breaking the cycle of violence and embarking on a path towards healing and safety. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Wisdom Wednesday podcast. Together, let's continue to shine a light on the shadows of domestic violence and support those on their journey to empower and recover. Stay safe, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Okay, so moving on to survivor stories. Survivor story number 1, Emma's escape from emotional abuse. Emma's story began. Emma's story begins in a relationship that appeared perfect to outsiders. Her partner, charming and attentive in public, wielded control and criticism behind closed doors. Emma, once vibrant and confident, found herself isolated from friends and doubting her worth, convinced she was the problem. It wasn't until a friend noticed Emma's withdrawal and encouraged her to seek help that she recognized the signs of emotional abuse. With support, Emma bravely left the relationship, embarking on a journey to rebuild her self esteem and reclaim her independence. Her story reminds us that abuse doesn't always leave visible marks, but the emotional scars are real and deep. Survivor story number 2, James's battle with financial abuse. James, a successful young professional, never imagined he could become a victim of domestic violence. His partner, under the guise of love, slowly took control of James's finances, restricting access to his accounts and accruing large debts in his name. James left. James felt trapped, his financial freedom stripped away, leaving him feeling helpless and ashamed. It was a conversation with a colleague that sparked the realization in James. He was experiencing financial abuse. Seeking help from a domestic violence service, James began the process of untangling the financial web and regaining control of his life. His experience highlights how abuse can strike anyone, regardless of gender or economic status. Survivor story number 3, Maria's liberation from physical and psychological abuse. Maria endured years of physical and psychological abuse. Believing she had nowhere to turn, in her community, domestic issues were considered private, and seeking help was stigmatized. The turning point came when a neighbor, witnessing an incident, offered a lifeline, connecting Maria with the local shelter. There, she found not only safety, but also a community of survivors. Through counseling and support, Maria learned to recognize the abuse she suffered and started on a path toward healing and empowerment. Her challenges the notion Her story challenges the notion that domestic violence is a private matter and underscores the importance of community support in helping survivors escape abuse. Survivor story number 4, Aiden's journey from victim to survivor of sexual abuse. Aiden's relationship began with promise, but soon turned into a nightmare of sexual abuse and manipulation. Feeling alone and confused, Aiden struggled with shame and fear of not being believed. The abuse continued until the health care professional noticed signs of trauma and gently broached the subject. With professional support, Aiden began to understand the abuse and took steps to leave the relationship safely. Participating in a support group for survivors, Aiden found solidarity and strength in sharing his story. Aiden's experience sheds light on the importance of recognizing sexual abuse within relationships and offering a supportive space for survivors to heal. These stories, drawn from the diverse experiences of survivors, underscore the complexity of domestic violence and the critical importance of recognizing its many forms. Each journey to recognition and seeking help is unique, yet all share a common thread of resilience and strength. By sharing these anonymized stories, we challenge preconceived notions of domestic violence and highlight the diversity of survivor experiences, emphasizing that support, understanding, and intervention can pave the way to healing and liberation. Moving on to recognizing signs and offering support. Recognizing the signs of domestic violence. Physical abuse, unexplained bruises, cuts, or injuries, often with improbable explanations. Like I walked into a door. um, Wearing clothing inappropriately for the weather to cover injuries, such as long sleeves in the summer. Or in my case, sunshades at nighttime. Who needs shades to work the graveyard shift? Moving on, emotional and psychological abuse. Decreased self-esteem or self-worth, often manifested as an individual second guessing themselves, or expressing feelings of worthlessness. It's real. Because I went from low self esteem to no self esteem, baby, with one of my relationships. But keep it going. Withdraw from friends, family, and activities they once enjoyed, indicating isolation. Real. Changes in mood or personality, such as increased anxiety, fearlessness, or depression. 3. Financial abuse. Limited access to money or financial resources, often if the individual is employed. Sudden changes in bank account balances or unexplained withdrawals. The individual is not allowed to work or make financial decisions. 4. Sexual abuse. Unexplained injuries or discomfort around the genitals or breasts. The individual expresses fear or discomfort around their partner or certain situations. Supporting someone in an abusive relationship or abusive situation, per se. Approaching the conversation. Choose a safe, private time and place to talk. Express your concerns without judgment or pressure. Use I statements such as, I'm concerned about you because I've noticed. Listen empathetically. Allow them to share as much as or as little as they wish without pushing for more details. Validate their feelings and experiences. Acknowledge the courage it takes to share their story. Offer guidance and resources. Encourage them to seek professional help. Provide information about local domestic violence services, hotlines, and shelters. For example, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799 SAFE, offers confidential support and resources. Discuss safety planning, help them think about steps they can take to increase their safety in a current situation, such as identifying safe places in a house or keeping a phone accessible at all times. Offer to assist them in finding a lawyer or legal aid service if they're considering leaving a situation or need protective orders. Maintain support. Stay in touch and continue offering support. Abusive situations can be complex, and leaving or seeking help can take time. Respect their decisions. It's essential to support them, even if they choose not to leave the relationship immediately or take the actions you think are best. Educate yourself. Learn more about domestic violence or learn more about domestic violence to better understand the challenges faced by the survivors and the best ways to support them. Organizations like Futures Without Violence and the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence offer educational resources and advice for supporters. Remember, the most crucial, the most crucial thing you can do for someone in an abusive relationship is to offer your unconditional support and let them know they're not alone. Encourage them to seek professional help, and providing them with resources can empower them to make informed decisions about their safety and well being. As we wrap up today's episode of the Wisdom Wednesday podcast, let's take a moment to reflect on the vital discussions we've had about the many faces of domestic violence. We dove deep into the complex tapestry that constitutes domestic abuse, exploring not just physical violence, but emotional, psychological, sexual, and financial abuses that may endure in silence. Many endure in silence. Understanding and awareness are our beacons in the fight against domestic violence. Recognizing the signs, whether in our lives or in the lives around us, is the first step towards intervention and support. We talked about the subtle indicators of emotional manipulation, the devastating impact of financial control, and the often overlooked signs of psychological abuse. Awareness opens the doors to action, and action can save lives. I encourage you to take what you've learned today and not just keep it to yourself. Share this episode, talk about these issues with friends and family, and let's bring these conversations into our communities. Silence benefits the abuser, dialogue empowers the survivor. Next week, we'll communicate. Next week, we'll continue our exploration of domestic violence themes, focusing on breaking the silence, strategies for intervention and support. We'll delve into how we can effectively support those in abusive situations and what steps can be taken to break the cycle of violence. It's an episode you won't want to miss as we equip ourselves with knowledge and tools to make a tangible difference. Before we sign off, I have a few requests that can help amplify the impact of our conversation today. If you found this episode enlightening or believe in the power of raising awareness about domestic violence, here's how you can contribute to spreading the word. If you found today's episode enlightening, please subscribe to the Wisdom Wednesday podcast. Leave a review and follow our blog and social media channels. Your engagement helps spread the message and supports our mission to combat domestic violence through education and awareness. Visit www.blessingourwomen, BLESSINGOURWOMENINC.org for our blog, and follow us on Instagram at BOW_INC. Same on Twitter. And on Facebook, we're at BOWINCORG. For more information, resources, and support related to domestic violence awareness, by subscribing, you ensure you never miss an episode, each designed to inform, support, and inspire. Our journey through understanding domestic violence and supporting survivors is ongoing, and your subscription helps keep this crucial conversation alive. Share this episode with friends, family, and your network, whether through social media, email, or a simple conversation. Sharing helps extend our reach and impact. You never know who might benefit from hearing this message, who might be encouraged to seek help, or who could become an invaluable support to someone in their lives. Engage in the conversation about domestic violence awareness. Use your voice on social media platforms, in community discussions, or in personal dialogues to talk about the issues raised in today's episode. Your engagement not only helps to break the stigma surrounding domestic violence, but also fosters a supportive environment for survivors. Lastly, spread the word about the resources provided in this episode. Awareness is the first step, but access to resources and support is vital for those affected by domestic violence. By informing others about available help, you're opening doors for survivors to find safety, support, and a path to healing. Your involvement makes a profound difference. Together, through awareness, education, and support, we can contribute to a world where domestic violence is no longer a shadow lurking in our society. Thank you for being a part of this important mission. Remember, your voice has power, and together we are stronger. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Wisdom Wednesday podcast. Together, we're shining a light on the shadows of domestic violence, fostering a community of support, understanding, and action. Let's continue to stand in solidarity with the supporters. Let's continue to stand in solidarity with the survivors and work towards a future free of domestic violence. Until next time, stay informed, stay compassionate, and keep the conversation going. Take care of yourself and each other.